The stars looked different in Sector 47B. Captain Jack Morgan had been staring at them through the view screen of the Intrepid for the past 3 hours, and something about their light seemed wrong. Maybe it was the strange purple hue that colored this part of space, or maybe it was just his imagination. "Captain, we're picking up something odd on the long-range sensors," said Pete Rodriguez from the communications station. His young face showed confusion as he studied his screens. Jack turned in his command chair. "What kind of odd, Pete?" "It's a signal, sir, but nothing like I've seen before. The pattern is all wrong for any known species." First Officer Lisa Turner stood up from her station and walked over to look at Pete's screen. Her experienced eyes scanned the data quickly. "He's right, Captain. This is definitely artificial, but the frequency modulation is unlike anything in our database." Jack felt the familiar tingle of discovery run down his spine. After 15 years in deep space exploration, he still loved these moments. "Can you clean it up, make sense of it?" Pete's fingers danced across his console. "Working on it, sir. The signal is weak and degraded. It's coming from... Wait, that can't be right." "What is it?" Jack asked, leaning forward. "According to these readings, the signal originates from inside the gravity well of neutron star NS447. But that's impossible. Nothing could survive there." The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew the deadly nature of neutron stars. Their gravity could crush atoms, and their radiation could kill from light years away. Dr. Emma Williams entered the bridge just then, carrying her morning coffee. The ship's xenobiologist had a gift for languages, both human and alien. "Did someone say we have an unknown signal?" "Right on time, Doc," Jack said. "Pete, patch the signal through the speakers. Let's hear what we're dealing with." The bridge speakers crackled to life. At first, there was only static. Then, beneath the noise, a pattern emerged. It was clearly artificial, repeated sequences that suggested language. Emma set down her coffee and moved to an empty console. "This is definitely a language. Give me a few minutes to run it through the translation matrix." While Emma worked, Jack studied the star charts. NS447 was a known hazard, marked with red warning symbols on every navigation chart. Ships gave it a wide berth, staying well outside its killing zone. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "if someone is transmitting from inside that gravity well, they're in serious trouble." Jack nodded. "I know, but who would be foolish enough to get that close?" Emma suddenly gasped. "Oh my God, I've got a partial translation." "Put it on speakers," Jack ordered. A synthetic voice filled the bridge, translating the alien words into English. "Emergency, fleet trapped, failing engines, 2 million lives. Please, anyone, help us." The bridge crew exchanged shocked glances. 2 million lives? "There's more," Emma continued, her voice shaking. "The signal identifies them as the Kreltar Imperial Fleet. Captain, the Kreltar haven't made contact with anyone in over 200 years. They're complete isolationists." Jack stood up slowly. The Kreltar were legendary for their rejection of all other species. They had turned away every diplomatic mission, refused all trade offers, and maintained absolute silence in all communications channels. "Continue the translation," he said. Emma nodded and refined her work. The message became clearer. "This is Fleet Commander Zektor of the Kreltar Imperial Fleet. Our entire fleet is trapped in decaying orbit around neutron star NS447. Engine systems have failed due to exotic radiation exposure. We have 312 vessels, carrying 2.5 million souls, including civilian families and children. Gravitational forces will destroy us in 71 hours. This is our final transmission. If any species receives this message, we beg for assistance. We know we have no right to ask. We have refused all contact, shown arrogance to all who approached us, but our children are innocent. Please, someone, help them." The silence on the bridge was complete. No one moved or spoke for several long moments. Finally, Helmsman Gary Chen broke the silence. "Sir, even if we wanted to help, approaching that neutron star would be suicide. Our shields couldn't handle the radiation." "He's right," added Chief. Engineer Sandra Bell from her station. The gravitational shear alone would tear us apart before we got close enough to do anything. Jack walked slowly to the view screen, staring out at the distant stars. Behind him, he could feel his crew's eyes on him, waiting for his decision. "Emma," he said finally. "Is there any doubt about the translation? Any chance this could be a trick or misunderstanding?" "No, sir," Emma replied. "The message is genuine. The Kreltar are really out there, and they're going to die unless someone helps them." Lisa moved to stand beside her captain. "Jack, we have no obligation to help them. They've isolated themselves by choice. They've rejected every overture of friendship humanity has ever made." "I know," Jack said softly. "And the risk to our ship and crew would be enormous," she continued. "We might not even be able to get close enough to help before we're destroyed too." "I know that too," Pete spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up something else. The signal is degrading fast. Their power systems must be failing." Jack turned to face his crew. These men and women had followed him across the galaxy, trusting his judgment in countless dangerous situations. He saw doubt in some faces, determination in others. "This is what I know," Jack said. "There are 2.5 million people out there who are going to die in less than 3 days. They have children on those ships, families, and they're asking for help." He paused, looking at each crew member. "Yes, they chose isolation. Yes, they rejected our friendship. And yes, trying to save them might kill us all. But if we turn away now, if we pretend we never heard that signal, could any of us live with that?" The bridge remained quiet. Then one by one his crew began to nod. "Pete," Jack said, turning to his communications officer, "open a channel to Earth Command. Tell them we have a situation. Tell them—" He paused, squaring his shoulders. "Tell them the Kreltar have asked for help and we intend to answer." As Pete began transmitting, Jack looked back at the view screen. Somewhere out there, beyond visual range, an entire civilization hung in the balance. The Kreltar had finally broken their silence, not with words of friendship or trade, but with a desperate cry for help. And humans, Jack thought with quiet pride, don't ignore cries for help. "It's not who we are. Helm," he ordered. "Set course for NS-447, best possible speed." "Aye, Captain," Gary responded, his hands already moving over his controls. As the Intrepid turned toward the deadly neutron star, Jack knew he had just committed his ship and crew to the most dangerous mission of their lives. But he also knew it was the right decision. Sometimes being human meant taking impossible risks for people who might not deserve it. Sometimes it meant answering the call. Captain Jack Morgan's message reached Earth Command 12 hours later. The quantum relay carried his words across thousands of light years in an instant. But those 12 hours felt like 12 years to the crew of the Intrepid. In the massive Earth Command complex in Geneva, Admiral Frank Davis read the message twice before calling an emergency meeting. Within an hour, the most powerful people in human space gathered around a conference table. "This is insane," General Rita Barnes said, shaking her head. "The Kreltar have ignored us for 2 centuries. They've sent back every ambassador, refused every trade mission. Now they're in trouble and suddenly they want our help." Ambassador Maria Santos leaned forward. "General, there are children on those ships, families. Can we really debate politics while they face death?" "I'm not debating politics," Barnes shot back. "I'm talking about sending our people into a neutron star's gravity well. It's suicide." "Admiral?" Davis raised his hand for silence. "Let's look at the facts. Dr. Martin, what do we know about neutron star NS-447? Dr. Carl Martin, Earth's leading astrophysicist, pulled up a holographic display. "It's a monster. Gravity at the event horizon is about 2 billion times Earth normal. The radiation output would cook an unshielded human in seconds." "Can our ship survive it?" Davis asked. "Theoretically, yes, but we'd need to modify our shields and navigation systems. It would take time." "Time those people don't have," Maria said softly. President John Baker had been listening quietly. Now he spoke. "What about the strategic implications? The Kreltar are known to have advanced technology." Director of Intelligence Sam Harrison nodded. Their shield technology is supposedly decades ahead of ours. If we save them... We're not doing this for their technology, Baker interrupted. If we help them, it's because it's right, not because we want something from them. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the president had lost his daughter in a mining accident 3 years ago. She had died because help hadn't arrived in time. Mr. President, General Barnes said carefully, I understand your position, but we have to think about our own people, the crews we'd be sending into danger. Baker stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Swiss Alps. I know. But what message do we send to the galaxy if we turn away? What kind of species are we if we ignore a cry for help because it's dangerous? Admiral Davis cleared his throat. Sir, I've run the numbers. We'd need at least 30 ships to have any chance of success, the entire Third Fleet. Do it, Baker said without hesitation. Mr. President, Barnes started. General, the decision is made. Baker turned, back to face them. We're going to help the Kreltar. Not for technology, not for politics, but because 2.5 million people are going to die if we don't. 24 hours later, the Third Fleet assembled at Staging Point Alpha. 32 ships carrying humanity's best and brightest, prepared for the most dangerous rescue mission in history. Admiral Karen White stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolution, watching her fleet take formation. Her executive officer, Commander Bill Hayes, handed her a report. All ships report ready, Admiral. Engineering teams have installed the modified shield generators. Karen nodded. What's the word from our science teams? Dr. Paul Green thinks. He's found a way to use the neutron star's gravity to our advantage. He calls it a gravitational slingshot maneuver. Risky? Everything about this mission is risky, Admiral. In the Resolution's engineering bay, Mike Johnson and Amy Lee worked side by side, fine-tuning the shield modifications. They had known each other since the academy, and both had volunteered for this mission. You know we might not come back from this, Amy said, adjusting a power coupling. Mike smiled. Yeah, but imagine if we pull it off. Saving an entire civilization, that's worth the risk. Amy looked at him. You really believe that? My grandfather used to say that the measure of a person isn't what they do when it's easy, but what they do when it's hard. This is hard, but it's also right. On the bridge, Admiral White received a message from the Intrepid. Captain Morgan reported that the Kreltar signals were getting weaker. Time was running out. All ships, Karen announced, over the fleet channel, prepare for jump to NS-447. I won't lie to you, this is dangerous. Some of us might not make it back. But we're going because it's who we are. We're the species that runs toward danger when others need help. She paused, looking at the faces of her bridge crew. Young and old, men and women, all united in purpose. There's an old Earth saying, no greater love has anyone than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. The Kreltar aren't our friends. They're strangers who pushed us away. But today, we make them our friends. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. The jump coordinates were locked in. 32 ships prepared to leap across space toward a neutron star that could kill them all. In his quarters, President Baker watched the fleet broadcast. His advisors had tried to talk him out of this decision. The opposition party was already calling it reckless. But he remembered his daughter's last message sent from the mining station. Dad, we're in trouble. Please send help. Help had been too late for her, but not for the Kreltar. Godspeed, he whispered to the screen. Commander Tim Harris, leader of the rescue teams, gathered his people in the Resolution's hangar bay. Listen up, we've got one shot at this. The Kreltar ships are failing fast. We go in, we grab who we can, and we get out. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. Lieutenant Dan, Cooper raised his hand. Sir, what if the Kreltar don't trust us? They've never dealt with humans before. Harris smiled grimly. Then we'll have to earn their trust fast. Actions speak louder than words. The fleet jumped. They emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the NS-447's killing zone. Immediately, alarms screamed as radiation hammered their shields. Shields holding, reported the science officer. but they're taking a beating. Admiral White stared at her tactical display. 300 Kreltar ships spiraled helplessly toward the neutron star, caught in its merciless grip. "All ships," she commanded, "begin rescue operations. Let's show these people what humans are made of." As the human fleet moved forward into the deadly gravitational field, a single thought echoed in every mind. "We're coming to help. Hold on." The greatest rescue mission in human history had begun. The neutron star NS-447 looked like a wound in space. It was small, only 20 kilometers across, but its gravity twisted light itself into strange patterns. Admiral Karen White stared at it through the Resolution's view screen and felt her stomach turn. "Distance to the Kreltar fleet?" she asked. 40,000 kilometers and closing," replied Navigation Officer Tony Clark. "Admiral? The gravitational readings are off the charts. We're already feeling the effects." Karen could feel it too. The ship groaned as invisible forces pulled at its hull. The modified shields flickered with blue energy, working hard to keep them alive. "First contact with alien vessels in 30 seconds, Commander Bill Hayes announced. Through the view screen, they could now see the Kreltar fleet clearly. Hundreds of ships tumbled helplessly through space, their engines dark. Some were already breaking apart under the stress. "My God," whispered pilot Kate Murphy. "They're being torn to pieces." Commander Tim Harris led the first rescue team. His shuttle launched from the Resolution's bay, followed by 5 others. The small ships shook violently as they entered the worst of the gravitational field. "Stay tight, people," Harris said over the comm. "Remember your training." They approached the nearest Kreltar vessel, a massive ship that was slowly spinning, out of control. Harris could see hull breaches venting atmosphere into space. "This is Commander Tim Harris of the Earthship Resolution," he broadcast. "We're here to help. Please respond." Silence. Then a weak signal. This is impossible." "Humans? Why would humans come?" The voice spoke English, but with a strange accent. The Kreltar had monitoring human communications for centuries, even while refusing contact. "We're here because you asked for help," Harris replied. "Now can you lower your shields so we can dock?" Our shields are the only thing keeping us alive. The radiation..." Harris checked his readings. The Kreltar were right. If they lowered their shields, the neutron star's radiation would kill everyone aboard in minutes. "Dan, you got any ideas?" Harris asked Lieutenant Dan Cooper, his engineering specialist. Dan studied his scanner. "Wait, I'm reading their shield. Frequency. If we can match it exactly, we might be able to pass through without them dropping protection." "That's never been done before," said pilot Susan Drake. "First time for everything," Dan replied, his fingers flying over his controls. The Resolution. Admiral White watched 3 of her ships take damage from gravitational shear. The destroyer Thunder reported hull fractures. The cruiser Lightning lost an engine. "Pull them back," she ordered. "Get them to the safe zone." "Admiral," Science Officer Dr. Paul Green called out, "I'm detecting a pattern in the gravitational waves. If we time our approaches right, we can ride the calmer zones between pulses." Meanwhile, Dan Cooper had managed to sync their shuttle's shields with the Kreltar vessel. They passed through the alien shields like ghosts, docking with a loud clang. The airlock opened, and Harris stepped onto an alien ship for the first time in his life. The Kreltar were tall, about 7 feet, with blue-tinted skin and large, dark eyes. They looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and amazement. "I am Sub-Commander Velkan," one of them said. We did not believe you would actually come." "We're here now," Harris said. "How many people are on this ship?" 8,000. Half are civilians, many children." Harris felt his throat tighten. 8,000 lives just on this one ship, and there were hundreds more vessels out there. "Velkan, we need to work together. Our engineer has an idea." Dan Cooper stepped forward. "Your ships all have shield generators, right? What if we link them together? Create a network?" Velkan's large eyes widened. "Link our shields? That's never been tried." "Like I said, first time for everything." Back in space, the rescue operation was becoming a deadly dance. Human ships darted in and out of the gravitational field, dodging waves of crushing force that could snap them like twigs. Pilot Kate Murphy performed impossible maneuvers, her small rescue craft threading between two tumbling Kreltar vessels. She matched speed with a ship full of refugees and managed to lock on with magnetic grapples. "Got you," she whispered, sweat running down her face despite the cool cockpit air. Engineer Rob Taylor had jury-rigged the tractor beams on the cruiser, Defiant. He used them to grab damaged Kreltar ships and pull them to safety. It was delicate work. Too much force, and he'd tear the alien vessels apart. "Easy does it," he muttered, slowly extracting a Kreltar medical ship from the gravity. Well, the ship's hull was already buckling, but it held together long enough to reach safer space. The breakthrough came when Dan and Velkan successfully linked 3 Kreltar ships' shields. The combined field was stronger, more stable. Soon, they had 20 ships linked, then 50. "It's working," Dan shouted over the comm. "The network is holding." But time was running out. The neutron star's pull was getting stronger, dragging the fleet closer to the point of no return. "Admiral," Dr. Green reported, "we have less than 6 hours before the inner ships pass the event horizon. After that, nothing can save them." "Admiral," White made a decision. "All ships increase rescue tempo. I'm authorizing emergency protocols. Accept any risk necessary to save lives." Her crew understood. They were being given permission to put themselves in mortal danger to save strangers. The human ships pressed deeper into the gravity well. The frigate Courage lost its main shield generator and had to retreat. The destroyer Valor suffered catastrophic hull damage, but managed to evacuate a Kreltar refugee ship first. Captain Bill Foster of the Valiant pushed his ship hardest of all. He dove deep into the maelstrom, engines screaming, to reach a Kreltar hospital ship carrying 50,000 patients. "Captain, our hull integrity is failing," his engineer reported. "Just a little more," Foster replied. "We almost have them." The Valiant's tractor beam locked onto the hospital ship. Foster ordered full reverse, fighting against the neutron star's pull. Metal groaned, alarms screamed. Hull breach on deck 7, structural failure in section 12. But Foster held on, dragging the hospital ship inch by inch toward safety. Back on the linked Kreltar vessels, Velkan watched the human ships risk everything. He turned to Dan Cooper, who was still working to expand the shield network. "Why?" Velkan asked. "Why do you risk so much for us? We are nothing to you. We rejected your friendship. We showed you only coldness." Dan paused in his work and looked at the alien. "You asked for help. That's all that matters. But your ships are being destroyed. Your people are dying." Dan nodded sadly. "Yes, and we'll keep coming anyway, because that's what humans do." As the rescue continued, the galaxy watched and learned something new about humanity. They weren't the strongest species, or the smartest. But when someone, anyone, called for help, humans answered. Even if it cost them everything. Captain Bill Foster knew his ship was dying. The Valiant shook like a leaf in a storm, metal screaming as the neutron star tried to tear it apart. But the hospital ship was almost safe now, just a few more seconds of pull from his tractor beam. "Captain," his first officer, Linda Grant, shouted over the alarms. "Hull integrity at 15%, we have to go now." Foster gripped his command chair. 50,000 sick and injured Kreltar were on that hospital ship. Children in medical pods, mothers holding their babies. "Negative. We hold position until—" "They're clear." The bridge ceiling suddenly buckled. Sparks flew from destroyed consoles. The lights flickered and died, leaving only emergency power. "All hands abandon ship," Foster ordered. "That's an order. Everyone to the escape pods." His crew hesitated. They knew what he was planning. "Now!" Foster shouted. "Go!" Linda was the last to leave. She stopped at the bridge door. "Captain, now go, Linda, that's an order." She saluted, tears in her eyes, and ran. Alone on the bridge, Foster manually controlled the tractor beam. The hospital ship was almost there, almost safe. His ship groaned, and he felt the deck tilt as gravity twisted the hull. "Just a little. More, old girl." he whispered to his ship. Hold together. The hospital ship finally broke free of the worst gravity. It was safe. Foster smiled and closed his eyes as the Valiant's hull finally gave way. On the Resolution, Admiral White watched the Valiant break apart on her screen. There was no explosion in space, just pieces of metal spinning away into the darkness. The Valiant is gone, Commander Hayes reported quietly. But the hospital ship is safe. 50,000 lives saved. Karen closed her eyes for a moment. Bill, Foster had been her friend for 20 years. Mark their sacrifice, she said. We'll mourn later. Right now we have work to do. In the medical bay of the rescue ship Hope, Dr. Ellen Park worked without rest. Human and Kreltar casualties filled every bed. She moved between patients, using every skill she had to save lives. A Kreltar healer named Shara worked beside her. At first they had struggled to understand each other's methods, but Crisis had a way of breaking down barriers. This human child, Shara said, pointing to a monitor. His readings are dropping. Ellen rushed over. It was Tommy Chen, a 12-year-old, whose family served on the damaged ship Thunder. He'd been caught in a decompression incident. Oxygen levels critical, Ellen muttered. She grabbed a breathing mask, but the standard human equipment wouldn't work properly in the high radiation environment. Shara pulled out a Kreltar medical device. Use this. Our technology can filter the radiation. Ellen didn't hesitate. She attached the alien device to Tommy. Within seconds, his breathing stabilized. Thank you, Ellen said. Shara touched Ellen's shoulder with a four-fingered hand. We are healers. It is what we do. They worked together for hours, sharing knowledge, saving lives. Human medicine and Kreltar healing combined in ways neither species had imagined possible. Meanwhile, the shield network Dan Cooper had created with Velcan was growing. They now had over 100 Kreltar ships linked together, their combined shields strong enough to resist the neutron star's pull. But the Kreltar command ship was still trapped in the deepest part of the gravity well. It carried their governing council and all their cultural archives, the history and knowledge of their entire civilization. We can't reach them, reported pilot Jake Miller. The gravity there is too strong. Any ship that goes in won't come out. Admiral White studied the tactical display. They had saved 200 ships so far, but time was running out. In 2 hours, the command ship would pass the point of no return. There has to be a way, she said. Dr. Paul Green suddenly stood up from his station. Admiral, I have an idea. It's crazy, but it might work. I'm listening. We use 3 ships in tight formation. They create a bubble of overlapping shields, like a spear point they punch through the gravity field. The stress would be enormous, Commander Hayes said. Those ships might not survive. I know, Green replied. But it's the only way. Admiral White turned to her crew. I need volunteers. Every hand on the bridge went up. Commander Jake Miller led the mission. His ship, the Phoenix, formed the tip of the spear. The Warrior and the Guardian flanked him. Together, they dove into the heart of the maelstrom. The gravity hit them like a giant's fist. Jake's teeth rattled as his ship shook. Warning lights covered his console like a Christmas tree. Shields at maximum, he ordered. All power to engines. The 3 ships pressed deeper. Metal groaned, power systems strained, but they kept going. They found the Kreltar command ship, tumbling end over end, its hull cracked in multiple places. Jake could see bodies floating in the vacuum where compartments had been breached. Locking tractor beams, he announced. Got them, but getting out was harder than getting in. The neutron star didn't want to let go of its prey. Engines at 120%, Jake shouted. That'll burn them out, his engineer warned. Do it anyway. The 3 human ships pulled with everything they had. Slowly, inch by precious inch, they dragged the command ship toward safety. Jake's console exploded in sparks. The Phoenix's hull began to crack. Come on, Jake shouted at his ship. Don't give up now. With a final surge of power, they broke free. The command ship was safe, but the cost was high. The Warrior lost all power and had to be evacuated. The Guardian suffered massive structural damage. The Phoenix would never fly again. On the command, Ship, Fleet Commander Zektor watched the human vessels limp away, some barely holding together. He had lived for 300 years and had never seen anything like this. "They're dying for us," he said to his second in command. "These humans we scorned, they're giving their lives for ours." His second nodded slowly. "We were wrong about them. About everything." As the rescue operation entered its final hours, the toll became clear. 12 human ships lost. Over 500 crew members dead. The survivors were exhausted, their ships battered and broken, but they had saved 247 Kreltar vessels. Over 2 million lives pulled from certain death. Admiral White stood on her bridge looking at the damage reports. They had paid a terrible price. But as she watched Kreltar children being reunited with their parents on the rescue ships, she knew it had been worth it. "Admiral," Communications Officer Sam Wright called out, "we're receiving a message from the Kreltar command ship. Fleet Commander Zektor wishes to speak with you." Karen straightened her uniform. Whatever the Kreltar leader wanted to say, she would face it with the dignity of those who had died for this moment. The screen flickered to life, showing an alien face that had never before spoken directly to a human. The galaxy held its breath. The face on the screen was unlike anything Admiral Karen White had seen before. Fleet Commander Zektor of the Kreltar had deep blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of his entire civilization. "Admiral White," Zektor began, "I have lived for 300 years. In all that time, I have believed that every species acts only for its own benefit. Today you have proven me wrong." Karen stood straight, her uniform torn and stained from hours of rescue operations. "We came because you needed help, Commander, nothing more." Zektor's large eyes closed for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet with tears. "Your people died for us. Ships we will never see again. Crews who will never return home. All for strangers who showed you nothing but coldness." "They didn't die for strangers," Karen replied softly. "They died for people in need. That's all that mattered to them." The Kreltar commander made a gesture with his four-fingered hands. Behind him, other Kreltar began moving in a complex pattern. Karen's cultural expert, Dr. Emma Williams, gasped. "Admiral," Emma whispered, "they're performing the ritual of eternal gratitude. It's the highest honor in Kreltar culture. It hasn't been performed in over 1,000 years." Zektor spread his arms wide. "From this day forward, the Kreltar and humans are bound together. Your sacrifice has created a debt we can never repay, but we shall try. Our knowledge, our technology, our friendship, all are yours." Another Kreltar stepped forward. "I am High Scientist Dekvar. Our shield technology, which you used so brilliantly to save us, is now yours. Not as payment, but as a gift between friends." Karen felt tears in her own eyes. "Thank you. But we didn't do this for rewards." "We know," Zektor said. "That is precisely why you deserve them." 3 weeks later, Earth received the returning fleet as heroes. But the mood was somber. 512 humans had given their lives. 12 ships would never fly again. President John Baker spoke at the memorial service. Behind him stood a massive monument inscribed with every name of the fallen. "They went into the darkness to bring others into the light," he said. "They showed the galaxy who we are. Not conquerors, not traitors, but helpers. When someone calls out in the dark, humans answer." Captain Jack Morgan of the Intrepid stood in the crowd. His ship had been the first to hear the Kreltar distress call. Beside him stood Velkan, the Kreltar engineer who had worked with Dan Cooper to save the fleet. "Your president speaks truth," Velkan said. "But words are not enough. We must show our gratitude through action." The first Kreltar human colony was established within months. Ambassador Nina Rodriguez worked with Kreltar diplomat Tar Len to create a place where both species could live and work together. Children played in the colony's parks, human and Kreltar together, their laughter mixing in the air. The parents watched with wonder. 2 species that had been strangers were becoming family. Dr. Tom Bailey and Dekvar began working on combining human and Kreltar science. Within a year, they developed new medical treatments that could cure diseases in both species. their shield. Technology made space travel safer for everyone. This is just the beginning, Tom said, looking at their latest breakthrough. Together we can do things neither of us could do alone. The Kreltar shared their history too. They had isolated themselves out of fear, convinced that other species would only try to conquer or exploit them. Humanity's selfless sacrifice had shattered that belief forever. 1 year after the rescue, a ceremony was held on the colony world. Fleet Commander Zektor had asked to speak to all of humanity. "A year ago we were dying," he began. "We had pushed away all other species, certain they would only bring us harm. In our darkest hour we called for help without hope, and humans answered." He paused, looking at the mixed crowd of humans and Kreltar. "You lost ships, you lost lives, you gained nothing but our friendship. And yet you came. You taught us the most important lesson: the galaxy is not full of enemies to fear, but friends we haven't met yet." Captain Bill Foster's daughter, Sarah, was invited to speak. Her father had died saving the Kreltar hospital ship. She was only 16, but her words carried wisdom beyond her years. "My father used to tell me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right even when you are scared. He died doing what was right. I'm proud of him, and I'm proud of what we've built together." The memorial for the fallen was unveiled that day, but it wasn't just a human memorial anymore. The Kreltar had added their own tributes. Every human who died was also claimed as a hero by the Kreltar people. The greatest change came in how the galaxy saw humanity. News of the rescue spread to every corner of known space. Species that had ignored humans before now looked at them with new respect. "They're the ones who answer," became a common phrase. When disaster struck anywhere in the galaxy, people knew who to call. Admiral Karen White retired a year later. At her farewell ceremony, she was surprised to see how many Kreltar attended. Zektor himself came to speak. "You led the mission that saved my people," he said, "but more than that, you showed us how to hope again, how to trust, how to be part of something larger than ourselves." 5 years after the rescue, the joint human Kreltar rescue fleet was officially formed. Ships from both species, working together, ready to answer any distress call from any corner of the galaxy. The fleet's flagship bore a simple plaque by its airlock: "To those who gave everything so others might live, your sacrifice lit the way to a better universe." Below those words were 2 symbols, Earth and Kreltar, joined together. Captain Jake Miller, who had led the desperate mission to save the Kreltar command ship, now commanded the rescue fleet. As they departed on their first mission, to help a mining colony threatened by asteroid strikes, he thought about how much had changed. Humans and Kreltar worked side by side on the bridge. Their children attended the same schools. Their scientists shared all discoveries. 2 civilizations had become one family. "Sir," his Kreltar first officer reported, "we're receiving multiple distress signals, 3 different systems." Jake smiled. "Then we'd better get moving. People need help." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead, the galaxy watched and knew. When darkness falls, when hope seems lost, when death seems certain, humans answer the call, and now they weren't answering alone.